I'm just gonna ask guys online. Can you, if we leave the recording, very complicated high-tech recording system, which is purely a laptop. Can you hear us all right here? Hello.
Yeah, I can.
You can you, if
Yeah, I can.
so if our reader is going to stand here, will you be, can you hear it okay?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yes, I can hear.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, guys, I think we could just about kick off. Thank you so much for being here. Anyway, a big warm welcome to all of you. This is the almost final Centre for Poetry and Poetics event. And we booked Mappin Hall because that's the only venue where we've got actually a stage, except that now the stage is being occupied by a brown piano, which apparently is forbidden to be tried to be shifted. So we've managed to create a tiny little theatre space. Sorry, Terry. We've got theatre experts in the room, so that's the University of Sheffield's theatre space. Otherwise, it's £600 to hire the little workshop space we used to have. We used to have lots of things, but anyhow. So, huge welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for coming online, guests as well. This event is recorded. The title of the event is called The Paradise, ominously called The Paradise Collective, and it's apropos the recent book, partly apropos the recent book I published with Common Press, but I didn't want to call it a book launch for myself because it sounds highly, extremely suspiciously narcissistic. So instead, I decided that I want to create a collective where I invite fellow writer friends, possibly the closest, at least geographically reachable, and therefore what I'm suggesting here is that we're going to have a little gathering rather than a kind of book launch or kind of rigid poetry event. We'll have quite a lot of us to read little slots, and all you need to do perhaps to kick off with is that the title I gave friends was quite loose, which was like, guys, have you got any work on something to do with paradise? Which I just thought we all need some sort of a, right, what else? I'm not going to finish that, because this is meant to be an uplifting conversation rather than a So I'm just going to straight kick off into who we have got here tonight. We've got Emma Bolland to read Kym Martindale, Adeline, Piette, Harriet Tarlo, Geraldine, and Terry O'Connor in one way or another, and myself. And we also have some this sounds really horribly patronizing and degrading, but we've got some student writers here as well, or just young writers, but that's ages. So I don't know what words to use really here to get it right and get it accurate, but I've got some level 3 students as well to read. I'll explain when it's their time to come forth how the kind of idea of students reading as well tonight came about. It's just quite interesting. So I'm going to kick off with, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to start with the first 3 writers and the last 2 writers, and then we are going to hear Aisling Crook, Rufus Hall, and Eloise Harrison. But I want to say a few words before you start, and then I'm going to finish the event with a collaborative reading with Adeline, Piette and Terry O'Connor, and I shall introduce Terry to anyone who needs an introduction. So Emma is a hugely prolific and interesting writer-artist, Emma BOLLAND, whose methods include literatures, translation, screenwriting, performance, drawing, sculpture, installation, and moving image. Their creative monograph include Over, In, and Under. This was a 2019 Dostoevsky wannabe publication, and Instructions from Light, 2023 publication. Recent creative and critical work includes Speaking Silence, In Gestures, a Body of Work, which was a Manchester University Press 2025 contribution for publication. Streaming Dreaming in the Year of Deep Listening, 365 texts for Pauline Oliveros. And also there is translation work here of Louis Daluc and the 1920 screenplay Les Landes. And this is going to be the first to be published work in English. There is editorial work here as well with Rachel Smith. They are co-editor of Intergraphia. This is a small press. They've published pamphlets, for example, by Antonio Dani Capello, Sasha Akhdar, Elzbieta, Ella, where she please, and very many more. And then there is, of course, the artwork by Emma. They've exhibited recently and perform internationally and have work in public and private collections, just to mention a few, because really the list is richly infinite. Recent visual and performance works have been exhibited as part of the testing ground, the solo 2-month residency at Yorkshire Art Space, for example, in 2025. Necrology at Harlem Art Space 2025, checked out at Haifa Studios, and so on. So, a massive warm welcome to Emma. All yours. I'm looking forward to hearing your Paradise version. Put this in the pocket. Put it in the pocket. Oh, never mind.
Long way round.
Are you going to sit?
The Tower Claims the Tower for the Paradise Collective, 15th of December 2025. The tower grieves the tower. In this great room I have 20 eyes turned inward to the dust, spinning in sunlight, motes to fill an empty bay. I once ballroom was, with dancing. Once the lights of glass hanging, now strips on winter days, they dim when electricity needs elsewhere. Joystick, witchery. In the corridor ground, I sense my undulations. Drips to where the warm is soft, lies cold, rises to the grand hall, walls green with fern, fire mouldings echo. At night, fast patters, whoops, chases, morphing my surfaces. A dot, a dot, a dot, a dash, dash, dashing. Three of stop. Around I go, swimming, a great circumnavigation, a dark and darker flash through the great entrance, the great full impudence. I am the great, each time the great light, the great sky, and always forget to slow to exit. And I am afraid that I will invaginate the rules, and what then if I must circle outside my skin? Here in the high tower I breathe. The air rolls down from the moor. I am a time bridge to the sky, but gasping. Time emerges out of breath, but never enough inside, somewhere dark between where there is nothing to burn but tobacco, tongues and fingers. Long softs that stroke my balls. Tick-tock and coppered alveoli. Plastic floors gilded, painted up here, I am gasping up at the sky. Dear, dear bones, I rattle, I shiver in the wind, rushing through the valley, creeping in through stone, the whole body of me is empty and cold, but through a soft warm that trickles from every floor, and in the below where damp creaks, crackle a twister, on spark and stone. The tower dreams the tower, dreams the tower, and shifts occur, and dancing, and launching, and a tilt, and these are the colours and angles. And in this great sky there are 20 eyes with starward and backward to the dust that shimmers, and dancing lights of glass, electricity, golden, observes the joystick. Ritually. I sense my undulations, dips to where the warm is soft, and soars, rises to the ground pools where clouds ring with cipher and echo. Fast patters and whoops, chases, morphing the surfaces with a dot, a dot, a dot, a dash, dash, dashing, swimming a great sky river, a great circumnavigation, dark and dark and dark and flash. Through the great entrance, the great sky balls glimpse each time the great light, the sky, and never slow, and I will imaginate my walls and circle outside of my skin. Here in the high tower, the high stars, and I swim and breathe the air that flies up from the moor. I, a time bridge to the sky, tick-tock and ticking, skipping. Time emerges out of breath. The trachea towers somewhere inside, where I burn sky tobacco with sky-burnished fingers, long softs that stroke my walls, golden lungs and coppered panting. Up here, I am gasping, starstruck at the sky. Dear bones, I rattle in the sky winds, rushing through the sky valley, flying through stone, and the whole body of me is full with stardust, and soaring through the Crook belt, and on into the puter fracta luminescence of the earth cloud. Billions of icy planetismals replenishing and glittering the comet spurts that quickly. Cosmographies of softness and flashing, and in below and in the above, the crackle of twisters and the tom sparking stone. The tower dreams the tower, dreams the tower. The tower dreams the book. Riffle, singing and furling star sails, 80 GSM. Star citadel, star tower, star sea, and transmissions dash, dash, dashing. The page is full of radio, and all the pretty papers riffle. The book dreams the book, and we are all together in a place made of light. My little love, my first rector, how dear to me the planetismals, the comets, and the gentle oscillations, the occlusions and soft shadows, and the light, the dark and pale. The books unfurl their wings and way lights the way. Soft sounds of turning, kiss across the fullness of the void, a parchment bathed in pewter light, and all the stellar tongues will chorus here. Hear the eyes of the transmissions, all the silence are soaring, and touch his word. Arise, lustrous sirens of the night, and every song but singing codes the sky.
I'm actually gonna lie.
So again, in the meantime, Geraldine, here we go. Could you make it slideshow, please? I don't know. I know, but I don't know how to make it slide. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much, Emma, for that. I'm actually gonna cry. Next, I actually forgot to introduce Kym and Adam, so I'm going to do that. The next two readers, one after the next, so I don't have to keep coming up here. Our next friend tonight is Kym Martindale, who taught English and creative writing at Falmouth University in Cornwall until 2019. Her academic work on the writers Monique Wittig, Bellerby, Oswald and Edward Thomas appears in journals and books such as Process, Landscape and Text, and then Identity and Form appeared in Contemporary Literature, Routledge 2013 publication, and then in 2019 Kym returned happily and to our happiness to her native Yorkshire and has since collaborated with Harriet Tarlo on Spillways 2025 and been published variously over the years in the Clearing and other online journals. After Kym, so I don't have to come up in between, with Adam Piette will read. I just wanted to mention to you that we've got a kind of a modest Christmas book fair here. Everybody's been quite modest. And I said, can you please bring some books? But we have some books on show today. There will be time for you to take a look at it, to take a look at the selection. I mentioned this because Adam's new book is there, who had their launch a couple of weeks ago, a month ago. We had a beautiful reading, and hopefully, well, we should see. It's up to you, Adam, what you're going to read, but I'm hoping it will be from the new one. So who is Adam Piette? Adam Piette is Professor of Modern Literature at Sheffield. He's the co-editor of the International Contemporary Poetry Journal Black Box Manifold with Alex Harron. He's author of Remembering and the Sound of Words, Mallarmé, Proust, Joyce Becker, Imagination at War, British Fiction and Poetry, 1939-45, and The Literary Cold War, 1945 to Vietnam. Edited a special issue of Translation and Literature on Modernism and Translation, the sole companion to Peter Robinson with Katie Price, and the Edinburgh Companion to 20th Century British and American War Literature with Mark Rawlinson. This was in 2012. He's the co-SCS. He has had poems published in Stand, Adjacent, Pineapple, and elsewhere. Then the broadside pamphlet, I don't know, did you not bring any of those? Shame. The broadside pamphlet, which it's a shame because it's a beautiful book object, a kind of a box. When you open, it's kind of like leaves of poems. But anyway, I've got my copy, so I'm fine. The broadside pamphlet, Night and Dreaming, was published in 2023, I think. Yeah. I think that was a constitutional and information Earthbound Press publication, and then a recent book, 365, which consists of 365 poems, came out just recently, October 2025, with Greta. And there is a forthcoming one, very likely next year, Lies Blurring Here with Lies Blurring Here. And this is a Broken Sleep, or this is going to be a Broken Sleep publication. Yes, several other projects forthcoming by Adam. We'll talk about that soon, because hopefully we'll be able to do something around the huge translation project Adam has been doing with me over the past 5 years, the translation of Attila József. It's a selection which is finished literally, and it's out now very soon, in a couple of months, in the world by Shearsman. But there is also several other projects, such as the edition of the work of Australian poet Catherine Vidler, and Vidler's work, and co-edited with Amelia Dale and A.G. Carruthers, which is going to be a puncture and Watman publication. So I'm intrigued to see what Kym's Paradise has got to offer. Where is this? What it looks like? Your runner's scarf? Cyclist, sorry. Cyclist. Can read it. May I? Or?
Yes, you can.
Oh, that's loud. So stand here and just. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for being here on such a foul night. As Aggie mentioned, I lived in Cornwall, and for the latter part of living in Cornwall, I lived in deepest Cornwall, in a little cottage called Pennerbound Cottage, which is sort of like the dream. Basically, we bought our retirement cottage too early. But anyway, so I wrote a series of poems about living there, because it was quite strange, really. The series is called Cottage Days, but Days is spelled D-A-Z-E. Okay. So, housework. Cottage Days, housework. I filled the wood burner with receipts. They make great fire starters, I explain. I put the cutlery in the fridge, so it's properly chilled, I say confidently. I leave new toilet roll in the garden, and it rains. Well, it feels a bit dry. The wind unfurls the toilet roll everywhere, but it needed some air, so tight and closed as it was. I polished the dogs. They smell sweeter and shine brightly across the fields. And it gives the rabbits better odds, I smile, putting the dusters away. And next one's move on. So, a dog. If a dog might smile a secret smile when he leaps on my bed to find his bed at the foot of my bed, if he might rub his paws in furious glee, lick his chops at his cleverness, if a dog might do this, how delicious would that be? And I might rush outside to bark at noon. If a dog might, I might. Night's ajar. The nightjar sits and churs to itself like an outmoded engine someone forgot to shut down. Once the nightjar had friends who came round for a peck of something and a game of poker. But after a while, the nightjar had debts it couldn't settle and scuttled to the furtive hours and the undergrowth. Now it sits and churs like the engine of an old day no one needs anymore, but got lived and thrown away. We had a lot of deer used to come round the cottage, and the farmer whose land our cottage was sort of on, he didn't like them because they were forever and sort of ruining stuff. But I like them anyway. The question of deer. It was big red deer as well, so now big. The question of deer. Deer are bulldozers, in fact, bashing at hedges and walls with their numbskulls, finishing the job with their appalling haunches. Deer are lumberjacks, as it happens, chopping at bark and saplings with their adzy teeth. Deer are masters of silence, though, and hold it deep within themselves. It was quite a journey from where we lived to where I worked, and I cycled it. The worst thing was when it hailed. So there's a couple of poems about hail. Becoming hail. There it was, curvy little droplet, hitching a thunderous ride, higher, proper thrilling, with its curvy little mates, admiring the views in its own convexities. When it felt the brittle air harden, and then its shiver sharpened, ugly and lumpen. Its thin cries choked silent in its soul before the ice closed up, the other droplets falling, falling, and it felt a new mass and a tug like its insides being torn out, and all that world rushing past the wrong way. All hail. Spiteful crotchets bouncing off the stave, consonants spitting free of word and line, white, uncontrolled, Surab blizzard of splinters, vicious haiku in your eyes, bitter combrio down your back. Libs stinging your thigh, little bastards, skimming along on the moan of the wind. Here's the paradise bit, you just have to spot it. Sort of paradise. Bonfire of inanities. No healing of this, no retreat, nothing but an inevitability clamped around the heart. That's miserable, isn't it? The strange fever of age, the slightly mad crowding of clarity against fog, and the inexplicable pointless grief. Once I wrote a poem about being old. I was 22. I had no idea that life was so fatal. In the midst of life, I found myself on a muddy lane with no one nearby. That's your paradise. Now, I have actually had, since I wrote this, had much more kind of intimate relations, sort of experiences and close-up encounters with hens. So, never mind. So this is a bit sort of pre-hen experience, but you get it. It's called, you know how you find supermarket trolleys just anywhere? I mean, they turn up anywhere. This was, so that I was kind of writing about that really, and imagining how this particular trolley got where it got. It's called Impossible Acts with a Supermarket Trolley. Typical trolley rests against field gate in a small lane, 2 feathers fluttering at its bars. Act 1. Vixen. Last night, hungry, keen, cub bitten. A week's fast in my belly, hold, trolley to hen house. Hens, bloody stupid hens. Didn't know what hit them till it was too late. What stink of me bit down, coop lips came to a piled trolley high and wove away, high with hope, belly already wilted, cubs dreaming of blood. Round trolley against gate, zigzag for an hour, catching carcasses, spitting feathers. Night scattered the fine evidence, and cubs tore, ate, tore, and I ate, tore, ate. Trolley rests against the field gate. The small lane is quiet. 2 feathers sputter in the breeze. Act 2. Farmer. In my kitchen, I bend to my accounts. I watch the hens from time to time, scratch, peck. Just out of the frame was an old trolley. Damn thing. How did it even get there? Scratch, peck. Farmer. What little friends their lives have. What small horizons mine has, for that matter. She turns back to her tenant and doesn't see anymore, her mind full of feathers and numbers. Hens. Speak as many and one. Whip into a hole, the better to conduct our thin scheme, and look how the trolley rolls slightly forward as she, deep in her figures, misses our bright flock glance. Backs turned now, beats still now, trolley roll, and night will fall. See, the emptying will be complete, so swift and dark, and no one tells, no one hears the astonishing sight we promise, with trolley rumble so coming are we, down the small lane, shivering with plans and future. Morning. Trolley rests by gate, 2 feathers dancing in the wind. I'm not entirely sure why that vixen, even though it was informal, had a Yorkshire accent, but there you go. I think I've just seen Chicken Run when I wrote that. Right, I've just got 2 more poems. One's about hares and the other's, well, I'm sure it'll come. So, as Aggie mentioned, you probably didn't catch it, but I did used to write about and trail around after Edward Thomas. And one of the things I did was to retrace his journey called In Pursuit of Spring, where he cycled from Guildford to Crook in Somerset in search of spring. And I sort of did parts of that journey on my bike. That's what I call research, that's great. Just going on the bike, basically. Anyway, and in part of In Pursuit of Spring, he sees 7 hares somewhere near Salisbury, I think, on these 2 places called Croucher's Down and Grovelly Wood. Crazy, isn't it? Anyway, so, and then in August 2020, I saw 7 hares in Norfolk. It's a poem in there, isn't it? Hares, counterpoint. Spring, crouches down and Grovelly Wood, hare, token of their own country. Autumn, crouching down, season's subsong, open, warm, soft, fell, whisking rain, falls secret rain. 7, yes, 7. Follow my leader, follow my leader, follow my leader, follow my bunch and round, tight, then out. Madeline back in their traces, bunch and leap, rewriting themselves. Could he be sure? Could he? 1 hare, just 1, proud of the field, utter and sure, on pause. Tied to itself, gold high ropes, full speed flick downland, nearly their colour, made earth, made air, and swift. Away free form where the earth gives them up 7, yes, 7 now, unpinning line, slipping shape, their fancy, open order, winter weather, that sub-season song. And 'tis the season, of course, to be jolly and all that. So anyway, this is the poem about, the poor guy, the angel that the Lord sent down to announce to Mary, she was going to have his baby. And I always like to imagine, I mean, you must have seen, you know, you get Christmas cards where he comes in and he's like, comes in after, sort of hovering on one leg, and his wings are out, and actually a little bit like this, to be honest, so it didn't make me think of that. So what was he thinking when that happened on Gabriel? Well, this is called Gabriel Fluffsy. The light was ridiculous, the noise overstating the case, and the lily, or whatever, wilting like her. I've never enjoyed the staginess, the theatricals, but it's expected. Brings a gravitas, he says, but it's the spectacle that clinches it. So I swept in, riffling dust and shavings everywhere, and frankly, yes, seemed to be the one that given the tidings. Steadying to a hover, I was poised, lily aloft, drapery billowing with portent. Rejoice, I began. Dear Lord above, if I may say so. She sprang away, grabbed the plank, and swung. Caught my left wing, sliced the lily. Jesus! Timing, he said later, is everything.
I'll put it back a bit. Look at a font thing.
I do some makeup as well.
Hello, Adam was booted out of Eden, so it's a bit of a liberty me being here twice. But it's very nice to be part of the Paradise Collective. And so these poems is kind of like miserable Adam just trying to remember if he was ever there in the first place. This is kind of the kind of dates and titles, that's all. So this is the 1st of October. From the sky, judge tiny fields. They've done no wrong, except a poisoning. You're in your silly hot seat. Imagination, gin soaked. Savours what? Identification with the fault? An energy drawn from the anger. Elizabeth Byrne faces you down along her slipstream. No space to move or stretch a muscle of this gagged mind. And temporary possession. Next stop, Rio, and an escape back home. 2nd of October. Text image magicked into felt being by cunning and derision. What's that about, you ask? The magus snoozes his supper away in the nook. A taxi awaits at the rank for you, yes, you out there with your views. Knock at the glass with gloved hand and scream politely, if you please. A senator cuffs, and Parliament considers the implicatures. What a sight for sore eyes they're making. Scenes along the river, and nothing's clear. 3rd of October. Each window is a cut, as if from a manifold. Squares of city, scored integuments, brick materiality in the frames that father wants. Carry me home and abroad. The camera dollies across the floor, and then the trees appear. The trees appear and sing. shudderings of lyric to the eye, sudden gentleness of colour, tumult, exhalations, the endless scatter, dappling of green. Fourth, art is a breathing in, contemplation of the dark, coordinate desk and easel, desirous of excess, fragments of Ganymede, Adam bequeathing captions, designation of every fantasy, endless futurities. Garrulous heart invents its jealousies. A Brazilian calm descends. Call it dancing. Effervescent, familiar, gorgeous. If it's more than enough, then that's just fine. The fifth. The future of sleep is here with you for life. A snooze before bedtime, delicious. Rest and pause for nothingness. Breathe. Deep are the ways of time, punctured by the sharp milestone slabs you lean against on the trail. Better be on your way. That shining path there, and the blooming bonfire in the copse, a stillness as they wait for a time, a while, a lapse, a thisness. Tick. Sixth. Tight in your seat you sit, hum of the machinery on your mind, voices and squeal and impatience. The air tastes of artifice. Keep you calm. I'm here. See me on the runway. Dream of a smoke and a drink. Too warm. Engines about to churn into action. Yes, that's right. Thanks for your patience. While waiting, time flows slow as mud. Rhythm of the thing, turning. Flight imminent from, towards, terminal. Seventh. Through the stone to the dead, Zender to Daedalus, tap, tap, tappity tap, senses, victuals, pray, Master Suffolk, this day, the manner and carve of it, deep incised to grain and grit, moon in the channels, this spirit, voices, its resting place, Delta Victor, ghosts and shades. Birds flap high in canopy at night. This shield is yours. Defend your living lights. Thank you.
Does this work? So. So I'm going to put the pictures, because some of the images from the book are taken, as I said, at my Harvard launch in October, I think it was. I'm not going to go into great detail about the images because that will be another half an hour. But the reason I'm putting them back on is because it's Harriet's turn to read and then Geraldine's turn to read. And both friends, writers, fictionalized or not, are in the images as well as in the text. So the images where you will see little ruins are taken from 2 walks I did 2 years ago now with Harriet Tarlo and Judy Tucker. And then you will see these ferocious images from the Sheffield Paradise Square, partly the title of the book references that. They're taken from Chloe Brown's documentary, and the documentary features. I don't want to say more because I don't know if you're going to read any of that, but if not, but it featured, it basically collaborated with Geraldine Monk, who provided and wrote a libretto for the actual film documentary, which included women cast only. So I will read those on the cast. Our next two readers is Harriet and Geraldine. So if you do need introduction, then I will just mention a few words about Harriet. For now, this poetry is published with Shearsman's Press, Etruscan Books, Guillemot Press. Harriet collaborated for over 10 years with artist Judith Tucker, exhibiting widely here and abroad, and publishing 5 artist books with Wild Pensy Press. Her most recent publications are Cut Flowers. We've launched that a couple of times, both books, Cut Flowers 1 and Cut Flowers 2. The first one came out in 2021, and the latest one was 2024. And I think there will be a third one. Very good. With Judith Tucker, Saltwort was a 2025 project, and with Kym Martindale, who we just heard tonight, Spillways was a 2025 2 project. Harriet edited the influential anthology The Ground as Land, an anthology of radical landscape poetry, a 2011 Shearsman publication. I'm deliberately, patronizingly spelling it out because a lot of students are really interested in the kind of thing the anthology is exploring. So if you're interested in eco-poetry, this anthology is a must. I'm just looking at my creative writers there. And not only that, but Harriet is also professor of eco-poetry and poetics at Sheffield University, and also now, shall we just leave the presidents? Okay, I'll leave it. So Harriet will come on in a second. After that, we'll hear Geraldine Monk, whose poetry was first published in the 1970s with many collections to her name, including her widely acclaimed Interregnum, Creation Books, and Eschefeld Hangings, Westhouse Books publication. Her most recent collection of poems, They Who Saw the Thee, was published in the USA by Free Verse Editions, Parlour Press. Geraldine is a founding member of the Sheffield Antiquire, Juxta Voices, for which she wrote many pieces in collaboration with her late husband, the poet Alan Halsey, and the musician Martin Archer. In 2019, she was commissioned to write the libretto, Paradise Square, for the Soft Rebellion film, documentary film by Chloe Brown, whose images you can see over there. So this is also to say a huge thank you to Chloe for allowing me to use these images tonight, but not only tonight, but in the book of my own. Geraldine is an affiliated poet to the Centre for Poetry and Poetics, University of Sheffield. But first and foremost, huge welcome to Harriet.
Have complicated things. I was rereading Apropos Paradise and also the list of many possible themes which Maggie suggested we respond to, and I have attempted to respond to all of them, which led me to spend sort of long maudlin hours lying around in bed with all my old books, you know, sort of shuffling around with them. So now I'm going to read little bits of all sorts of things. So I'm going to start with obsession. That was the first theme you suggested.
All right, okay.
Yeah, obsession. But also pressure, because I think there's an awful lot about pressure in Apropos Paradise. This is a book I published a really long time ago called Love/Land, which is about obsession. Compartments separating, campanula, flax, mallow, thrift. Internal division cuts off that long body or this. How do we, with what the world throws, sometimes produce into pressure? Dry thrift, fetch, yellow thyme. July again, heads on skates, fall water, rearranging disorder, close knitted threads, stalks, campion, thistle, plantain. Mistress of herself, jumps clover high as a skylark. Whole quarters slip by, without stone flowers, gorse, birds. I've lost the mic. Have I lost the mic? It doesn't really matter, I can project. Not as much as Adam, but I'll do my best. She's anyone, wrote Alice. That's Alice Notley. And she knew. She'd been thinking about it for a long time. Just at that moment, a tiny frog broke the surface, a physical illusion. She's anyone I am, bright and sweet in her mirror, designed with pale frame to highlight her, dark patterning mouth aghast at my intrepid daring, an aunt, a lady, recognition, anyone. And the second thing I was responding to was friendship, which is a big part of what Aggie's doing this evening, which is friendship between poets. And so there's three cut flowers responding to friendship. And they both contain words from friends. And the next two contain words from Kym. Let your beard grow. That's not Kym. Let your beard grow, said the lady to her friends. Endless tea mugs, a flutter of milk dugs, a fluster of children, single cell mosses. How do they grow? Chasing, they form complicated patterns on green stage against grass lawn. Let your beard grow, said the lady to her friends, a flutter of children. How do they form on green lawn? Fog on the move, remembers sea in its valleys. Turn flash fishes down direct, as star falling wit, how it opens up blind spots anew, awry. Dream when you do, well. Fog on the move, remembers sea turn, direct wit, blind dream, well. Oh heck, this conversation needs a bench. Give up, give over, flower, slow into intimacy of sparrows' twigs, heather's volume of fog, palpable, waiting, nestling ledges, hissing, strangely draining. Got you. Oh heck, this conversation needs a bench over intimacy. Heather's waiting, hissing. Got you. I'm going to skip illness and go on to melancholy. I don't really want illness, not tonight, not in paradise. We're doing melancholy, silence and loss. I'm just combining a few key themes of Aggie's there. Melancholy, silence and loss. I'm going to read from one of the artist books from Outfalls. And this book is based on a 10-mile defunct canal called the Lath Canal in Lincolnshire, which I know you know. Yeah, that's all I need to say, really. It's got some little pieces of text that's either found or from stories people have told. River ruptures out, sluice running, Ludd under, duckering Linco, iron footbridge, worn ropes hang. John O'Hart, Jody. Felled trunks over dark flow, pathways in and out of bushes from town, where they brought each other down here, down. When I'm cremated, my family knows they're to take my ashes down to the riverhead and toss them in the canal. Bramble, brick, lock, curve, purple, dead, nettle, hoar and ivy, branches hanging over water, tumbling white into pale, aged orange, rounding echoes of land's quiet side. Ida and her brothers skating on the canal in 1909 in moonlight. Her heavy skirts pulled her down. They couldn't save her, nor all her London education. November, 3/4 winter, pale moon, clouds shift, pink afternoon. Sun falls on far side, over swan feather edge. Gold spread sycamore on water, on teasel tangle land. Navigation takes a northern turn, for slow seaward gist. In memory of Pearl Irene Simpson, 1943 to 2013, a wandering star. And the final little collection responds to, no, they've gone. It's all gone. But you know, there were some images of Elysium, which were from the walk that Aggie and I took with Judy. And we've taken again recently, Elysium and Hades. She didn't mention Hades, but they are two ruined farmsteads near where I live. I'm not going to read about them, in fact, but I'm going to read from Nab, which is a very early book of mine, which is going over a similar kind of hillside with similar ruins. Adam said to me earlier, you never have any buildings. I said, I do, I have ruins. So, yeah. And the other thing I was responding to this actually was also you were talking about walking, which is a key. I mean, you know, she's a flaneur, isn't she, really? She is a flaneur extreme. So that responds to this. This is from Nab. Steady yourself on a grass, late ragwort, late clover, the way up Meal Hill, plashy donkey steps, green berries, all the green berries, hawthorn gone to berry, first blackberries, heather outstretching nab, purple. Shining irregular edge, blurred edged line down their front crest between paint yellow, great-tipped, and flight, dipping, about to fall, catching air again, balance, wave, lift, August, late up the nab. Great hairy willow herb, foxglove shaking, spreading, shaking, wind all the way up against nab. The sky hits me, shaking, gradation going up to thistle, late tormentil, bilberries turning everywhere, once your eyes in. Gorse, late flowering. Look, she said, squint your eyes and it all blurs into one. Dimensions insist. Cloud is not against sky, but it is, never was, painted. Late flowering single bells, bellflower and ling, white in the green grasses. The boy, about 10, passes, singing, stops himself, carries on. Sky moving too fast to stay hot. Clouds overtake it, whelm. Kestrels hold, hot for rabbits higher up. Ruin in mud. 2 arches, 1 house, hay barns and beast houses and stables, stone about it. Weasel and wren rush. It's just catching up with where they were is an intervention. When you don't see it, it's still running into its own space shape, stirring, not the thing in, through, and through, out. Darker, moves over stone, heather, sward, smoke. Water takes light, pulling roots up. Cows stamping sounds over earth, under, feet, down. On the road, rainwater blows over, ring-collared dove, pale, neck streak, incomplete, dark against flutters, light, repetitive squeak. A man off his bike beads blood. His friend holds him at the side, under dark summer trees. Pollen falls over him. His leather still shines. Red clover lasts late. I'm just going to read one poem. Yes, one more poem. Which one is it? That's this one. Which is a sort of slightly consoling poem, maybe. Or this whole structure came down. It is consoling by the end. This whole structure came down, but slowly. Dust first, still hanging on falling, then line by line, or frames loosening from walls, built around a pole or a poem, strut back beyond trunk into smothering life, alive, oh. This whole structure came down, but slowly, on falling frames, built poem, trunk, alive, oh. Thank you. Hello. Let's try the other one.
We don't need it. We don't need them. We don't need. I find it easier. I find it easier to hear without the microphones.
Okay.
I find it muffles sound.
Okay, then.
With my ears. I decided not to. I wasn't going to read the Paradise Square thing because I wrote it for a solo voice, which I did, and then I had this vision of a big crowd, and then I had a little for a little quartet chorus. So in all, there was like 3 different elements to the libretto. And if I read it, it just sounds a bit flat, I think. In fact, I think it just doesn't work. It doesn't really translate. So that's why I'm not going to read it. It just, if you can capture the, I hope one day that Chloe's going to release it into the wild instead of keeping it wherever she keeps it. I don't know. I do have a recording of it, so you have to come round to my house to see it. You're all welcome. Now I've got a gate crasher. It's the Halsey, Mr. Halsey, and he's gate crashing because when I heard Aggie read it, giving a talk the other whenever it was, she was talking about how she took things from other people, and of course all good poets take things from other people. We are absolute magpies and thieves. The thing is that we're not plagiarists. There's a difference. It's a real fine art between plagiarism and outright theft. We're just thieves. And one of the greatest thieves was Alan, my beautiful late husband, Alan Halsey, and he stole this from Aggie. And I'm only going to read 3 lines from 3 short ones. So it's so far as to, you know, this one, Aggie, do you want to say where it's from?
Yes, but actually, it's not a fact, really, literally, practically. It wasn't a fact because in my career book, which came out in 2000 and something, it was my Sheffield collection, and I like that Sheffield. And then Geraldine, like in all my books, my friends do, but in that specific with Geraldine and then feature, you with the arrow poem, do you remember?
No.
Well, you should, because I wrote that for your 70th.
It's okay, right, I do remember.
You got that for your 70th, but there was a
Oh
poem.
God, I can't remember my 70th.
There was also a poem for Ellen's 70th, I think, so that one was
Right.
important. And he quotes from the poem I wrote for him.
Right, okay. So it's kind of like, it's all getting very incestuous, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's so far as to, so this is just 3 little short lines from Alan. Someone went so far as to realise that the books he'd never written told it all. Mina Loy went so far as to say that poetry is prose bewitched. I love that one. There are people who go so far as to say that it's quiet enough to hear a spider sneeze. Okay, right, that's Alan Gate crashing. You cannot lay him low. It's terrible. He's more around now, isn't he, than when he was. When he was actually walking around amongst us, you know. Oh, right, this is just the first verse of this, and before I go on to what I'm going to do, it's Angles, a really old one, a piece of almost juvenilia coming out here. In fact, I've got some of these, because they're just very, very early poems, but there's one that are very long, and I'll tell you I read it. Angles. This is a one-off, a shoot at angles from side to zenith to down deepest of range, about to earns, corkscrew again, catch window, frame, reflect, fleet knife, points of blink, shine of shine, sheer glass shine, glints of bound to regret. Terribly read, wrongly read. I haven't read it for a long, long time, but it goes very, very quick, very quick indeed. And it's just things that are glinting and almost things at the corner of your eye. And I think I might identify something that may have come, where that may have come from. And so I'm going to read this. It's actually prose, and I don't read prose very often, so we'll see how it goes. It could be a disaster. I'm going to get it's a kind of from my memoir, and this memoir, or reflections, as I call it, it's only from when I'm sort of probably in the womb until I'm 14. So someone said very short, well, it's not very short at all. But it's called Unforgiving Mirrors, and it's provisionally called Reflections, Hauntings and Bewilderments. And it's just been accepted by Shear's Mum Books, so good old Tony, thank you very much. This one is called Mirror Maze, and I think you'll maybe see some connection with that, but that was so badly written and read that I hope I redeem myself here. So, Mirror Maze. And just make sure I don't fall over, because for those who don't know, I suffer from very bad vertigo, so I'm very likely to fall off the stage at any minute, which if the reading goes very badly, I might do voluntarily. So, Mirror Maze. Unforgiving mirrors is precisely the right term for when mirrors turn their full-on devious faces into outright vindictiveness and malevolence. I speak of an encounter with that hard, unnatural surface which would slither and lodge between the sheets of my memories. It all ended in almost tears and internal yells. This is from the section called the Book of Yells, by the way, which is, of course, a pun on the Book of Kells. Internal yells. But to fully explain what came about, we must first board the train to Blackpool. We're going to paradise. To make our way to the pleasure beach. We are in its heyday, when you could enter the grounds for free and soak up the atmosphere in the doyen of fairgrounds. Fairgrounds were my ultimate childhood space of escape into thrills and spills and altered states, whether they were at the seaside or the travelling fair that came to our town every Easter. The deafening, multi-directional noises from engines, pop music, people screams, rides, sideshows, the brash and beautiful colours of the ornate decoration and deliciously cheesy artwork, all lathered with the sickly, overpowering stench of hot diesel fumes, fried food, and boiled sugar. Only fun fairs can provide us with such unadulterated, fabulous, heady vulgarity. I loved them. On arrival at the pleasure beach, we, Bro G and me, Bro G is my brother George, or my estranged brother George. We got divorced a few years ago now. Is this going recording? Oh well, there you go. It's official, it's out there. Okay, so Brody and me would make a dash for our favourites like the Grand National or Dodgems, then investigate any new rides and sideshows while feasting on teeth-rotting candy floss, toffee apples and humbug rock, and generally having the time of our lives. On one such visit, we encountered a new sideshow which looked a bit dodgy, as though it was still under construction. But it was flagging itself up as the Mirror Maze, culminating in the familiar Hall of Mirrors with their body-bending distortions. The mirror maze appeared to be a cunning new way to entice us into visiting an old favourite. We studied this mirror maze for a while with a degree of trepidation, fascination, and on my part, suspicion. I was extremely iffy about the whole concept. Despite my deep misgivings, and after much deliberation, we decided to go for it. I should have followed my hunch, my instinct, because I wish I never had. And not being melodramatic, but what was meant to be a fun sideshow crashed full tilt into a childhood micro-trauma. The mirror maze made its debut in Southport in 1961. God, I'm very, very wobbly, I'm sorry about this. In 1961, going by the title, 1001 Mirrors. It probably dropped the 1001 as it clashed with 1001 Arabian Nights, but less glamorously was a very well-known household carpet cleaner. When it reached Blackpool, it had become the Mirror Maze. I came across this brief write-up of it in Southport. 1001 Mirrors was a simple maze made up of sheets of glass and mirrors. People would think they'd found their way through, only to walk into a sheet of glass. Oh yes, the endless fun to be had, walking into sheets of glass. And so we entered, the disarmingly bright interior with its duckboard walkways covered with low-grade, ill-fitting matting. Indeed, the makeshift nature of the whole construct offered not a modicum of reassurance. It looked and felt like the owners had just popped down to the local hardware store the night before to construct this shoddy, cack-handed feature in time for the Wakes Weeks crowds. For those who don't know, Wakes Weeks are the annual holidays of the industrial northern towns. It lacked elegance, ornamentation, and attention to detail that the lovingly well-built sturdiness of other attractions offered. I need a little wet my whistle because it gets really, really disturbing. Well, you've got, plates of glass that you're supposed to bang into. We thought of that, they wouldn't pass it now, would they? Right, where are we? The plates of mirror and glass were crammed and slotted together, forming narrow channels or pathways, resulting in a breathtakingly claustrophobic environment. In no time at all, I found myself separated from Bro G, except I wasn't on my own, as I found myself repeatedly walking into myself or into an adversarial doppelganger, which looked scarily like me, but somehow wasn't. I walked those planks of creaking duckboard, meeting myself coming back or meeting myself going forward or turning my head to find my image splitting and becoming several cells scattered at angles. I attempted to avoid colliding with these splinters and shards of my likeness, only to crash into a sheet of glass which would block my progress so I couldn't get away from the maze nor away from myself. Like a spooked animal, I became disorientated, not knowing which way to go and how to get out of this infernal place. This maze of glass and mirrors was not remotely fun, but overwhelmingly oppressive to the point that it induced a surge of panic, forcing its way up through my body and hitting my throat, half paralyzing me. I felt completely trapped. I decided to try and retrace my steps to the entrance and escape back into the dimension of negotiable space from where I had just come from, but I soon found I couldn't do that either, as I didn't have the red thread of Ariadne, so the haunting of myself continued, as did the invisible blocks of glass, which I kept smashing into. It was relentless, and then, to my intense release, I heard Bro G calling my name. We seemed to be the only two people stuck in this wretched labyrinth. He was beckoning me to come this way. I turned and saw a distorted version of him. He was behind me, to my right, at least I thought he was. He'd made it out of the maze and was in some sort of clearing, and I could see him now in his fractured fuzziness through the layered reflections of glass and mirrors and fractured time. So I hurried towards him, only yet again to be rebuffed by an invisible force as I smashed really hard into another hostile pane of plate glass, rendering me bruised and defeated. I could hear my brother laughing and saying, this way, every this way, which way I turned into glass and mirrors, buckled and deformed space blocked my escape. By now, hot tears of panic were beginning to well up. I wasn't a crier, but this had defeated me. Ironically, the last thing I needed was the distortion of tears to further blur and disturb my vision and shred my world into streamers. But how to get to my brother when he wasn't even where I thought he was, and I was constantly impeding my several selves, walking into myself or crashing into glass. The whole escapade descended into a living nightmare. I never thought about it before, but the word sheet, describing the exquisite softness of bed linen or newly fallen snow, is also applied to the unyielding hardness of ice or glass. It is a pure Janus word with its two faces in stark contrast of opposing meanings. When reflected, the forms were devious, I wrote somewhere. Somehow I had escaped from this many-faced, self-devouring trap of devious opposites, reflections and deflections, and reached my brother. Eventually I did. I fought my way through that vile chicanery, and with tremendous relief, I rejoined my bro, and together we entered the hall of mirrors. Okay. Right, so that's it. That's all I'm doing. Thank you so much. Can you help me down? Of course. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much. We're nearly there. I'm going to see if any of this is working. So let's crack on because we've got a little time left. We've got to say quite a lot left. We've got this sort of tutorials through. And this is the one I'm going to just ask my three next readers to come up on stage. So how did this idea come about that Rufus, Eloise and what's that? Oh, shall I finish it first? Oh, are you going to say it? Okay, it's true, because I don't know what you're waiting. Yeah. So the idea came about because Aisling, Eloise and Rufus came to my launch. So we started chatting about this whole concept of the two-in-one. The book is trying to explore a kind of philosophical concept by Hannah Arendt, which is very cooking in a nutshell because it kind of required a whole talk for me to explain during that night, which I'm not going to do today, but kind of I refer to this whole concept of this internal dialogue, according to Hannah Arendt, takes place between the split self, the two in one, the kind of doer, kind of and the thinker, beer, and a thinker. One of them is more of a passive one, the other one is more of an active one. But how to bring about the kind of third space in which thinking can become productive. And I also talk about the fact that if this space, what she calls nowhere, is endangered or at risk, then something what she calls comes about, what she calls the kind of banal, or the totalitarian banal, or the banality of evil. I'm not going to go into that, but this is where the students pick up from. And Eloise, after the reading and the conversation, asked me about these houses I described in the book, and it got her thinking about a specific house, asking me about it, but also I kind of threw the question back at them, which was the sort of house. I was actually specifically asking the question, which is the house for you that you can't escape from? And that thought got me thinking, but I also threw the question back at them and said, before I tell you, why don't you tell me what your kind of horrifying house is that you can't escape or can't leave from. So this is obviously a strange house, a political kind of construction, and also the psychotic space as well. I have no idea what the three will come up with, as it surprised me, but all yours. Do you need mine?
You can put it up. Yeah. Oh, you can put it up. Have you got voices? You'll be fine.
An ungettable distance.
Somewhere in this room is a relentless whine. It's a high-pitched, incessant hum, a long drawn-out scream of violin, damn strings too tight to make anything but noise of serrated tin. A blade of the blender behind the counter lodged between my teeth and chin, cutting into fleshy cheeks, making laughs into a wider grin. I can still hear the whine, must be further within, a shown association of wine of mouth.
Oh, would you look at that, leaving yourself, your mouth, your maw open wide, stretched thin and translucent, almost split, gaping, not gasping like a parched fish, but obliging with cabinets, yawning like a creaking awning, reflectively yearning for some things to crawl inside. How quaint, how accommodating. Really, as I glide over tongue and teeth, slick skin, sickly sliding, catching on canines, cooling in your palate. A murder of such saturated sense as I contort to fit, undulated and flexing, writhing in silk sheets, twisting fluid and running until I coagulate. Shift and clot, frozen to the spot, framing the roof like insulating slabs, your black hole fillings, fathomless, leaving behind this husk of desiccation. Oh, sweet stagnation, revel in your abdication. Renounce yourself, your body in blood, until your meat runs out, runs away.
Pack a case, bloods pile on. I'm not just any tree on the windswept shores of Jura, but I'm not interested in their nature. I blink one eye and standing in the mundane dunes of murder, blisteringly.
To bear the pain of preservation, our resin life, stuck on display till we splinter, left suspended.
An ungettable distance, an unattackable, undefending fortress that has definitely wasted all my youth. I'm skiving, I'm living, dying amongst the wind that carries the sand and me in wispy black tapestry that bends like a woman, like femme, like flesh, and she is full of people and dancing caricatures who are receiving a melancholic death.
To find the noise, peel back all these layers of noise, separate the busy chatter noise and whir of milk frother noise, like skin from muscle moist, slowly, painfully appealing noise. But under the noise, muscle, find more flesh, untouched and unbloodied and never-ending noise, The noise of the oak door as it swings, more high consumption noise.
But we've learned not to be picky, even for your certified cuisine. So snog to snog, drizzled and drowned, and dry and spun. Tuck your feet, tuck your tail, time to chase the male. With baggage under eyes and under skirts.
Capturing its oppressor's hair in swish and swagger, whistle line formation, wearing its one, not his, her, not by its existence, not because the flow of the ambitious poet's creation begins to resemble a trance-like state, but morphs into the ideals of the poet's time and creation. In its fluctuation, the creation begins to unwind, and unbeknownst to its creator, turns into a kind of flourishing and treads its steps with time and flying.
Somewhere in this room is a relentless whine.
Wriggle and hop, the worm, fly, buzzes and caught slash, the apple in our eyes. Like that fly, caught and live, stuck to the eye.
The regurgitating noise of a man that learned to eat from a baby bird.
Swirling in juices, the sheen acting like syrup, a honey trap, caramel toffee, sticky sticks, sticking.
Interested in the noise.
Like glue, and now there's nothing to do, nothing but sticking to do. As we're stuck in the muck, pulling hard, it's no use, a chafing cuff, rattling my teeth.
The whir and the scream and the blade still lodged in my teeth, nappy noise and the scratchy sound of the barista's corduroys noise.
Let loose, sat on edge, a tiptoeing serration. Lean right, lean left, no, too fast to fall. Flight through the night, roll down the moon. A burst of speed, you're in the lead. To the beginning again, having spun back again. Loop the loop in a thread. Tie the noose, suture the knot. Clench the cheek, bite the tongue. Swallow the pig. Now what's the game?
The noise, that unrelenting, uncompromising, unbending noise.
How beautiful it is that these two paradigmatic images, who exist in separate squares, flip and join together. Their relation, diagonal, but only insofar as they know each other. They now exist as entities that lie in an iceless band, the sky is falling, their shapes depicted as fuzzy and dark. The poet notices the eye of the thing.
But careful now. You and I are.
Eyes do not rotate, they do not consume, they do not eat with endless hunger, they do not see the world for its raw materials. Eyes take in, they stop, capture with slow and delicate precision precisely what they need, then leave. What a useless function it must be to have eyes.
Sharpen those words. Bend back with the force of those words. Words not to eat, nothing to eat.
I am like the man, standing sore atop the thumb. While sucking on my thumb, I transmute myself, a ship, a woman, a man. I am sand, wind, land, sky, and skepticism, and lastly I am briefcase, a chemtrail left behind the institution, the space of the system. No, I am wearing a brown-scented, suitably square rectangular original, this time fitting, strung up in string, marked and stamped and sitting. No, standing there in the rough, I transmute myself into a dying image, and with the wind at full speed and full back gale force, turn to grey and full white sail in the ungettable distance, I am briefcase. I am briefcase made out of a specific kind of state.
Of king, please kindly stumble from the weight, that terrible crushing weight of jewels are encrusted dreams suspended in fossilized amber. Fragments poised to stick, not be struck, but to struck. Strike that fleshy eye.
The Beatles' eyes move, and eyes move, by which I obviously mean I, and to define this further, I am the man in the suit and tie. The papers scattered on the table in front of me peel and convulse. They mutate and shrink away from the noise, frightened to be overexposed in a place such as this. A place of so much sound, noise, and a relentless whine. Inked sheets further ruined by spat saliva from the vent. Their paper-cut wounds are washed with brine, sprawling hieroglyphs and scrawled out letters, confusing one another and blurring created letters. On this table was every note I ever made, every word, inflection, or rapid noise. To hear the buzz and babble of a few more noises I've yet to make, desperate to start to write, to keep writing, among the noise, among the hum, focus not on the hum, to pick up the first paper, the one right with my thumb, and all I make out is an atlas with the word everywhere, scribbled, 9 times to a line and 56 times. The noise is too loud to make sense of my own handwriting, my own rhymes. It is everywhere, it leaches and permeates every safe edge of my skin. Noise itself carves with its dirty knife the everywhere inscription. First down my arms, line after line, then down my chest, my stomach, my thighs. Noise scribbles on my calves, my toes, my cheek, until I, now an atlas too, read everywhere, every time. This is all to say the noise overcomes, and somewhere in this room there is a relentless whine.
The ungettable distance.
so much. I'm actually super jealous now.
We need the idea of the triad that we are actually just about to do as well. Absolutely fabulous. Okay, so everything is gone. It's such everything. It's such a supportive environment, isn't it? Just when you're about to want to use things just kind of run out of juice or blocked or I don't know. But if Adam is fixing things, it's not that necessary because I actually have got. It's just that it's such a striking image that I really wanted you to see the original cover. So the book, Paradise Fair, apropos Paradise Fair, contains 6 poems, and each poem, as I said to you, in fragments deliberately, because I only want to talk about my own work in fragments tonight. Studying up this term. Sorry. Each kind of reconstructs a poet's house, kind of through actresses, or Geraldine calls it thieving, the act of thieving or theft, or recycling. So the sixth one. So the image, oh, it's gone again.
Just describe it to us.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's just you should have seen the state of the room when I came in at 5:30. But anyway, so the final prose poem, which is rather long, reclaims or reconstructs a conversation already fictional that took place in this specific book. It's called Conversations with Cheryl Sutton, and the book was written, this is a fictional text, a creative text, by Janusz Pilinski, 1970s or 60s poet. And he picked for the cover of this specific fictionalized conversation with the American actress Cheryl Sutton in the 1970s, a snapshot of Cheryl Sutton's performance. This is all labyrinthine, deliberately. Cheryl Sutton's performance in Robert Wilson's, who just recently passed away, I think, Deaf Man Glance, which was performed, I believe, first in Paris in the 1970s. And it's a 7-hour long, literally actionless or plotless, Terry will know more about this than I do, actionless or plotless play. Not much is being said at all, but the 7 hours is focusing on Sutton acting out the sort of murderous mother, but I think the action itself is never portrayed or performed. So the book, how does the book, why did the Hungarian poet become so interested in this? Well, firstly, because he went to see it totally accidentally in the 1970s in Paris, and that's when he meets the actress, and they actually befriend one another, and from then on, they only correspond in letters. The Conversations with Cheryl Sutton text is not non-fictional, so it is not letters they actually shared. It's a kind of fictionalized conversation he calls a novel dialogue between two lovers, but we should not understand the word lover in the sense we normally understand the word by. And this text, thankfully, to Carcanet, was translated 20 years later, and you can actually buy it from the Carcanet website. It came out in, I think, in the early 1990s with a slightly different cover, with Harriet Tarlo having a fag. So I'm just going to stick to the original picture of the original book, which I also have got in my Hungary, in Budapest, somewhere on my bookshelf over there. But this is the cover of the actual original book. So how does the poem work? In the actual poem of my own work, I get really fascinated by the book cover and also by the content of the conversation. Because the content of the conversation in the text, in the Pilinski text, will be focusing on conversations on art, conversation on what I'm becoming, seriously, I'm realizing I'm becoming more and more obsessed about is the kind of structure, psychology, philosophy, poetics of the act of conversing and conversation. Hence the reference to Hannah Arendt's 2 in 1 as well. So this specific poem is called Apropos. Each poem starts with apropos of something. And this last one is called Apropos Forced Entertainment. And this is how friend Terry comes in, because the name of Terry O'Connor's theatre company, theatre group, is called Forced Entertainment. So here again, another act of thieving taking place. So I nicked the title because since I have known Terry, we talked about the nature, the act of the performance of conversing, and seeing Terry's plays, it kind of turns the whole idea of the conventional conversation on its head. If you see a forced entertainment production, then prepare yourself for discomfort and being completely freaked out. If you're looking for sense in the Terry O'Connor conversation or performance or forced entertainment, there isn't much. It does something else. You need to look for something else in it. So it's a mixture of the Pilinski original book, but also it's referencing the art of absurd theatre of the now, personal conversations I've had with Terry and other friends, and a lot of personal stuff, which I won't share with you tonight. So the idea was to do a 2-in-1, so to do a Hannah Arendt split, because in the original text, there is a conversation between poet János Pilinszky and Cheryl Sutton. But then Adam comes in, just to overcomplicate the thing, with his review of Apropos Paradise Tale, in which he actually tells me that I'm not doing a binary here. What the poems are doing is a triad. So there are at least 3 voices, what he calls the sort of sophistic or sophist, what Plato called the sophist dialogue, rather than the sort of Socratic one, where you've got 2 voices. So I thought, okay, well, to punish you for this revelation, I'm going to ask you to be what Plato then calls the 3rd voice. So you've got voice A, I will be the pondering poet. We've got voice B, Terry, who will be the performer, the actor. And then, forgetting about the duality of conversations, we'll open it up to a third voice, which actually sounds a bit like, from what I gather, a sort of, I've discussed this with Adam, so you've got a premise A, then a premise B as an answer, but the eleatic stranger comes in, the third voice, as someone who is, or what is, or that is, or which is, kind of introducing a completely new concept, as opposed to A and B. Am I doing this right at all? But it can be quite conclusive as well, as far as I understand. But anyway, I split this poem up into three voices. It does not look like this at all in the original text. This is effing embarrassing, because I've done this for Terry, who is a real expert in scripts and plays and whatever. So it's called Apropos Forced Entertainment, aka Alice Girls Education on the Recovered Conversation. Can we do this without mic?
Yeah. I would say.
We try and be quick.
How do you want to space for a second?
I don't know. Do you want
Sit
to?
down.
But then,
Yeah, sit down.
do you want to sit?
It's strange to be in the room.
I asked you in the beginning of the night, I said, do you want to sit or stand? No, definitely stand, definitely stand. I know, but, you know, we have to be considerate of the online audience as well. Okay, so apropos forced entertainment, aka Alice Girls Education, The Investigation, Act 1. Reality, me girls. Cheryl the she, the unwilling, willful, weirdly woman, knit stitch right side, pearl stitch wrong side. I mean, she the charlatan, sitting stiffly in an implausibly high chair, on her right or left shoulder, a large or small bird of prey, positioned in the center of the black and white photograph, framed by a much larger or smaller frame, hung up in the Metapoet's Buddha apartment. A sort of frame which you might call monochrome vista or self-colored panorama, dyed in retrospect, or a single window or rare opportunity, or which you might call a neutral conversation between performer and poet, the impersonator and its alter ego, the anonymous author and the eleatic stranger, finally accomplished in the end, rammed, pinned on the wall in the poet's living room by way of anamnesis, as if a permanent reminder of something significant but long forgotten. A cognitive souvenir, a photograph the poet later also chooses for the cover of his conversation with Cheryl Sutton, Pilinski's only prose work, published in '77 in a hardcover. The book inspired by the impromptu meeting with the American actress in Paris back in the early '70s, which when you retouch it, feels like an odd skin of an alternative or otherworldly wooden frame of a weird window opening both inwardly and outwardly onto a horizon, in hindsight, unfamiliarly familiar to you. I found later, much later, as a special edition in the early '90s in one of the many antiquariums on Museum Boulevard in the 5th district in Budapest, explains her awful, magnificent figure slowly, ritually turning towards the poet, also known as for now you, stiff, grandiose, majestic, sitting upright on some elongated tall throne, as if on top of a turret, similar to the tower at Sheffield Manor Lodge, where I saw another poet performing many years ago. The figurine, knit one stitch, then purl one stitch, one time one rib stitch, figuratively speaking, dressed in a similarly elongated Victorian endurance dress, born by way of a lifetime commitment, not so much to a deity as to a doctrine by a single woman of not so much assumption, with the acceptance of something as true, though not known for certain, as that of presumption, of a truth without proof, with educational mission, with the turtleneck stiff too, as if made of not so much fabric as concrete, neck, head, and posture, as if arms, hidden, tense and intense, motivated yet motionless, which we might call a state of agitation, as if presenting as mere unspoken, unspeakable, a syntactic silhouette, as if menacing not from a linguistic outside, but from an outer side of a so far unknown and already dead language, haunting you not quite from an opaque past as from an uncertain future, etymologically speaking, as if she were not a whole, but just a torso, something one could only hope to mimic, except that reality, as pars pro toto, merely part of itself, never really imitates anything at all.
And that she, the composed poser, the permanent residence of the hanging chair, a suspended cathedra, as if engineered from sheer air, so to speak, explained in the corresponding letter to the pondering poet, by which I mean to you much later, in an alternative tete-a-tete, a private one-to-one designed for lonely winter projects, which in retrospect appears to be more like a rehearsal with herself, which you might call a two-in-one's shadow word pirouette, a sobering head-to-head between the actress hung up, bound within the picture frame, and her alter ego, the private poet, panicky, permanently sick, somewhat provocative, argumentative, as if almost anguished, possessed by some inexplicable fever or nausea, as if by tea mania, triggered by the soundless conversation with the sham actress on the wall inside his own living room, as if both communicating from a separate window frame, crisscrossing the sky like tense laundry lines, as if in conversation which pulls you too without words. A silent, novel dialogue, a love story, or soundless opera, not so much between two lovers as between unwilling, willful subjects, whose talk in the end nevertheless triumphs over horror, is the power and scandal of all art.
For this contra-conversationalist she, Sutton, who first meets the poet in Paris in 1971, after her performance in Wilson's Deafman Glance, a 7-hour-long play by way of Wilson's tribute to his friendship with Raymond Andrews, later explains, for the consummate raconteur's eye, performing the chilling role of the immaculate mother, who, during the course of what seems like an infinitely long play, stuck inside a house which from the outside appears to be a so-called Kulturhaus, erected mostly for young girls. Inside, as you later find out, more like an asylum with labyrinthine corridors. On the walls, series of albums of descendants of more or less decent mothers, but mostly bare and originless offsprings, or poor nieces of posh great-great-aunties. In a word, series of replicas of the retro-futurist good girl. Acting is not an impersonation, but a sort of investigation of a kind of solitude, an interrogation of historic silence, a two-in-one monologue about drama's desire for dialogue, a kind of drama sans drama, taking place privately, from which, if you're lucky, some communal rite is born.
auto catauto. Conversation today, my paper girls, with all its tectonic faults within its weaving structure, as if a broken rib stitch, the sham she of the beyond continues, should be spatial, not a linguistic, but a physical, organic space of the reciprocal, the architectonic space, not so much of theatre as of amphitheatre, not so much auditorium as aura of the silent house fauna. The hypnotic presence of potted plants, where silence is conserved, not so much an inhumane as a post-human drama without drama without climax or catharsis or play, a kind of extended or arrested moment of perpetual and persistent past verbal ipsu, as if a zone, a kind of waiting room or aula of perpetual anticipation of one's life's beginning, performed not so much on as at the edge of the stage, during which takes 7 hours, at the height of recognition, vis-a-vis regret, speech reaches its own limits and comes to an astonishing halt. Auto catauto.
Auto catharto. This plant-like, what for us seems speechlessness, a kind of vegetative glossolalia of the fauna trapped in the home, in all posthumous forms. The silent multiple narrative yarns, the monologue of the nostalgic houseplant, this intricate weaving and reweaving of truth fibers from untruth, light from light, true light from artificial light, this internal counter-ventriloquism of operatic theatrical muteness, a being on the verge of remembering, on the edge of saying what it was one has been all this time trying to undo and thus unforget, acted out on stage, tolerating no human speech, intimacy or touch, the plays animated acoustics constructed only from the inanimate noise of museal objects and domiciled plants, on each a name tag or toe tag hanging off, inhabiting the theatrical house, pristine, almost see-through, as if made of glass, the unprohibitive room of a so-called household holding within things, items, i.e. organic and non-organic stuff, empty portents, hollow things in themselves, tender buttons, exhibits of one's lived life, one once maneuvered around, forced to symbiose and thus to intersect in both black and white space and time, the metallic echolalia of the room's constituents, the relentless resonances of the running tap with no water, the quiet clinking of cutlery with no meal served with it, the heavy breathing aura of the rooms, no candle, only gas, colors contaminated with not a soul dwelling inside, weird, speculative, ghastly, ghostly, post-agape apparatus casting only shape but no shadow, occupying their own space of promise or charms that remain for what it's worth, invisible or at their best out of touch with each other, and thus as if they are there, by which I mean here merely as omens, as emblems to absorb a much larger silence.
And from this revitalized motionlessness, which you might call not so much a freeing or floating above as a sinister swimming, just at eye level, from this paralysis, this inertia comes this creative productivity, viz. Mimicking what's inimitable, weaving a convincing poem that looks and reads like a real poem, that can at last begin to take magnificent shape. Abracadabra.
Abracadabra. Crafty little dopey poppy. Don't push your luck, said she, a half-visible, half-obscure logo around her head, quasi-illuminating, quasi-eclipsing anything which may obstruct my teeny-weeny half-witness, my petite pushover. Or else, push it too far, and your eyes will pop. Oh, the itsy-bitsy. Oh, my microscopic misfits. All my petite piss-pants. Look, she has the dingly-dangly tidbit, swallowed the jingly-jangly key in order to fit in, and now we are all logged in. Regurgitate, you dumbwit, she says, focus not on the rhyming house, but on the kindness of the knife. Auto catauto.
Auto catauto. Speech is vegetative conversation, you see. Prevents us from being able to make the desired bond. Inhabiting the past is what allows you to survive today.
She lies.
This also means, in yesterday's horizontal theatre, Sutton explains, staying in conversation with the poet for a little longer, you find everything as in a temporary house built on sand, only it has no cellar, nothing to have or hold on to. It's holding sans hold onto the day itself, revolving around the present with no memory, no consequence of time, to the point of delusion. The house resembles, except that it hasn't happened, an open stage which has not yet been built on plein air, possible yet impossible to enter or exit from. Within the restraints of the moment, you are free to come and go. It's a sort of crazy making, the secret tool of the she, consummate shapeshifter, shape-shifting forms of as-ifs. The qua narcissus, the self-appointed martyr, the self-fantasist, who swears and solemnly affirms that the evidence that she shall give shall be the truth, the partially whole truth, and nothing but lateral truth. So help us, O God, auto catauto.
The economical conversation, stitch one, kill one, stitch, interlock. Our trembling, fragile architecture resembles, by which I mean mirrors itself, but it is indeed your task to detect the likeness, the closeness of what appears disparate, a sort of forced, which you might call desperate likeness between predator and prey, which is merely a different aspect of the same, an only law of the same, an only home you have got.
The rules of this non-mimetic psycho-theatre, sort of priceless thriller without the thrill, some kind of forced entertainment, performed not so much on as off stage, thus appear to be deadly serious, as if doing just the opposite, working against your own body's algorithms. You too were being, as long as you go along with the reading of the script, unpinned, having lost your nerve to revisit what you have just heard or witnessed, following the order of chronology, viz. The practice of precedent, as if violently propelled forward by an unmistakably screwed up past on the blind page towards an obliquely uncertain future, while ultimately remaining unharmed. That, it seems, or you might say, is the unwritten constitution of such eerie, airy, paper-eyed play. If you decide to sacrifice life, either performatively, viz. As mimesis, or in the closet, viz. As in the real, make it legitimate, viz. Imitative, caricature of butchery drenched in fake blood, a carnage anemic, a bloodshed bloodless, disguise it, in other words, viz. Don't act it out in vain.
But why are you trying to find commonality in an intangible botanical realm? The house, an enormous artificial eyewitness, a see-through morgue disguised as a fin de siècle glass house, a Grecian orangery situated on the grounds of the disfigured Hortus Botanicus in the 8th district, remembers all the same. No candle, only gas. Abracadabra.
And so you too, equally mournfully, not so much automatically as autonomically. Again, autonomically surrender and begin to take part in the elegaic play, at which point the alter ego's manic plotting of untruths begins to slow down. The actress's crocheting, viz. Endless attempt at mimicking the real, which itself does not mimic anything at all, comes to a temporary end until it eventually stops, yet only in order to acoustically anticipate what's to come back again, and thus becomes part of your own recollection, but with an anticipated return that's never quite the same, for a change, a shift, not so much in the actor as more so in you, has already taken place.
Nearly there. Act 3. Forgot to say the Act 2, but we're actually in Act 3. And we're nearly finishing this suffocating conversation. I'm getting actually quite uncomfortable myself. Going back to the pondering poet, that's me. I have told you to pay attention not to the animate, but to the inanimate. The quiet presence of the sick flora housed inside the quark cant's hole. Plants too, you see, mere frail philia, mere delicate little genitalic flower. It's a flower, not a scummy Rorschach test. Like all shapes of all organic truths, eventually, in order to survive, will flower once more, spinelessly, spitefully, by giving space to exposing your innermost, unborn yet or so far dormant, a-logocentric thoughts before they die. Abracadabra, she said, straighten up the apron, little crease. Apropos aprons, crafty little speck of solar dust. Spit it out, smidgen, she said. Do not touch. Don't deviate. Start counting, she said. My eeny, miny, meeny, miny, echo. And when you count, count in present continuous, non-stop, until the very end. For the algorithms of even what's most compassionate and solidaire, if and when dying quietly and slowly, might be slow and silent, but is essentially finite. Oh, all you hiding girls, my petite bookworms, furrowing, burrowed in, earthwormed, homing in on hideous habitats, or pointless, neurotic, sad little, touchy-feely, reader-unfriendly booklet of your petty shame. Abracadabra, unhide those dirty little hands. Abracadabra.
Abracadabra, this house, or so reads the motto, is an alternative asylum of the retro-prospective, retro-futureless addict, an unorthodox, what you might call rehabilitation centre, a safe house, with an unassuming appearance, inconspicuously situated in the premises and promises of a botanical garden, preserving inside for a little longer what's already died outside. Static and solid from the outside, yet only silk, thin fibre, fragile as a butterfly from the inside, a site of simulacrum, a care home, simulating kindness or concern. In its core, with the centralized nervous system, the grief-breathing arthropod, the post-biographer, the visionary obituarist, the woe weaver, the choir botanist, one's private mortician with the power to antedate what you fearfully long have anticipated, is a house for life in which you are incurables, untouchables, having never been fully touched. In the present continuous, addicted not so much to being actually touched as to the withdrawal of feeling, in whatever way, touched at all. Hence, they compulsively self-touch.
touch. But my minuscule iota, my tiny, full, or glottal stop, then doesn't something being itself by itself, being prey by prey, subject by subject, in this much darker and larger predatory game, mean, i.e. being dittoed or duplicated, that every form is itself by itself, such that every form is numerically distinct from and not present in the things that partake of it. A question Socrates posits in Parmenides. And because there is no plural without the singular, in other words, there is no collective either without the solitaire, and thus there is no such thing as solidarity without solitude, such that a crowd or social gathering would not constitute its own loneliness, agora, our open space, without its own replica, secret one, the disclosed without the undisclosed, speech without silence, language without violence, we without the many, dittoed, I, placed, pressed, or at times forced on top of one another. There is no main text without subtext or marginalia, in other words. That the content or the motion or the meaning of such soft architecture, tender building, to and fro's in time, and thus there is no such thing as irreversibility in what's cyclical or reciprocal, and thus there is no such thing as pars pro toto without pars, subject without object, or the two without their abject touch.
Act 3. The passenger par excellence.
Unchanged, but then when all is told, the truth is a made-up true story, you see. The Uber driver continues on our way to the airport or to the pool or en route home from the theatre, I can't quite recall, raising his voice, his nodding dummy dog, a sort of pit bull in a skirt, rhythmically bobbing in the back window, Nina Simone muffled, and the only creatures who survive reality, he nods emphatically at you in the rearview mirror too. It's not the biggest or the strongest or the most stationary or the statistically settled. It's not the robust, the immovable, the paralytic, the static form, a settler, but the one in motion, perpetually unsettled, an unsettling anti-settler, the ephemeral trespasser, the parasitic quasi-being in transit, the stopgap subterranean passenger, not so much in waiting as in passing. He is 50 and having just got divorced, feels as if you were free, as if unattended, no strings, no attachments, no one can ever pin him down again. It's only the mind. Your heavenly chauffeur continues as we are turning to the right on the corner of Pond Street in Sheffield, in which you are your own captive.
My own captive. In other words, it's only the motor mimicry, the paranoid parrot in your head, as if you were not so much echoed, things you say deferred, as even though dubbed, as if you were distorted, edited, or censored by your tongue-in-cheek echo, the two never quite in sync.
Go small, go big. In conclusion, he says, you're bound to fail the life on an island quiz. The house you left is undoubtedly a mausoleum, an abandoned dormitory, the homeland of Bathos. The Isle ahead, you might already suspect, full of weird white noises, houses imploded, gas pipes broken, landscape traumatized and haunted, words, waters contaminated, the elegiac isle of those not so much already dead, as in perpetual mourning of all those already dead. Autocathauto.
Autocafauto. Ah, yeah. Impersonating being both host and your own guest. Practice stimulating mercy and compassion to yourselves. occupy my vacuum. Talk to me instead. Your wobbly paradise is this very moment in the bubble of this cab. We are one, you see, but we are not the only one. We are one of the multitudes of ones living torn not into one island, but into many smaller and smaller islands, and yet as one in the collective panic of many one's loneliness, hanging on at the top of an aula's column or a theatre curtain, nailed onto a pinpoint.
On a pinpoint, and to kill time during this edgy play, on rainy days like today, let's pretend and play that we are not forcefully here, but spontaneously elsewhere, unwillingly being, or for that matter, to the point of delusion, that we are not convincingly real, or for that matter, not so much weightily dead as perhaps just dormant, or not born just quite yet, or de facto on some airy agenda, perpetually rescheduled, viz. Put on hold. It's no surprise one is feeling put off,
Autocatato, put off. So my horizon girl, sit back and relax. Inside this vehicle, you're sound and safe, i.e. untouchable, intact. It's where I suspect you belong, in fact. Abracadabra, she lies. You can remove the hoodie.
From that smart bird of yours, I meant.
Thank you. What fun, actually, to be an actor. I want to do theatre from now. Thank you so much, guys. Books, cakes, books. Thank you. Thank you, Harriet, Kym, Emma, Geraldine, Harry, Adeline, Cheryl Sutton-Pilinski, Rufus, Aisling, Eloise. Thank you so much. I'd better cut it because it went on.
That's such a lot of text.
If we just had the stage for ourselves.
If it's just a whole evening.
I didn't realize how
It's fabulous, Maggie. It's fabulous.
dinner, darling? You coming for dinner, my love?
I'm actually going to go home. I'm sorry. But we'll do some dinner